All right, good afternoon and welcome to K-12 Education Budget. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Kansas State Department of Education budget and consider recommendations and how we would like to proceed. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To get us started, I would like to make a motion that we take the contents of House Bill 2588 and 2592 and insert them into the House substitute for House Bill 2512.
Is there a second on the motion?
Oh, okay, related to the education. Oh, yeah, not all the contents,
Yes.
just the education contents of those two bills.
We have a second from Representative Landwehr. And before we discuss this motion, Representative Hoffman, would you like to explain it?
Yes, thank you.
Could we get a repeat of the motion, please?
Yes, we may.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's, so we're taking the education portions of, or the K-12 education portions of House Bill 2588 and 2592, which are our budget bills, and inserting them into House substitute for House Bill 2512. And to just explain, you know, we've done that in the last couple of years where we have pulled out the education budget out of the main budget bills and then inserted a policy with that, and that's what our plan is to do. So,
Further discussion on the motion. Representative Owsley.
Can we get a refresher upon what 2512 is, the contents of 2512?
Yes, Representative Hoffman has it right here.
yes, thank you. That is the, that has House Bill 2649, which is prohibiting virtual schools from offering financial incentives. House Bill 2602, which is the alternative calculation for the graduation rates for virtual schools based on students' credit. And then House Bill 2512 is the main bill, and that's the virtual school state aid. That's the one that helps with dropouts, changes the calculation of how much they get paid for kids that are dropouts to try to help them get back into the school system.
Further questions on the motion? And also, of course, Representative Hapwood, welcome. She is here today, so taking the place of Representative Nguyen. Welcome, Representative Nguyen. I'm sorry, was it anybody? Oh, you're just waving. You don't have a question. Okay. No other questions on the motion or comments on the motion? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed, no. All right, the motion carries. We will be removing contents of House Bill 2588 and 2592 that relate to education and placing those contents into House Bill 2512. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion that we add $5 million SGF for the Safe and Secure Schools grants for fiscal year 2023. And then we're going to also update the language to allow expenditures for new school resource officer positions.
And before we take a second, just a clarification on this, you're adding that into House Bill 2512, correct?
Exactly, right, I'm sorry.
Okay, so today, committee, with this motion, and for any items that are budget related, this is the day we want to look at those items. So we're going to concentrate on that. Second by Representative Johnson, and now discussion. Representative Thomas.
Could you touch on the SRO officer part again?
So this will allow them to use the grant for new SRO officers. It will also, there'll be a little bit of a twist there because this is a one-in-one matching grant, and so what it will allow them to do is either use the grant as the city's portion of the SRO officer, or they can use it as their portion and the city pay for theirs. You understand what I mean? Okay. So they can do it either way. The school could do it either way, depending on how they feel best.
And also to note on that it is for the first-time FTE. It wouldn't be ongoing for resource officers. And also a reminder that when we first passed this in 2018, the legislature put it into the budget for the first time. It had criteria related to, you were going to use technology, you were going to use it for the doors and the windows and for security cameras and security of the actual building. You could include training as well, but it wasn't originally for any type of positions to fill. So that's why we wanted to expand it a little bit and to encourage the usage of it. It was a, something that we have 2 FTEs currently still filled from the Kansas Department of Education. So they're there for the ongoing training of safety and security. And if you do recall, I believe just maybe a couple years later, the governor took it out of the budget through allotment process. And so then we put it back in last year through the ESSER funds, and it was denied by the State Board of Education, even though the ESSER requirement said that you could use it for facilities and for health reasons. So. And then the final item is it is not in the governor's budget this year. So that's why it's an enhancement that we are recommending, but it is new SGF. So we have the motion in the second. Let's open up for discussion. Yes, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You said cities. My county, the sheriff's office, has been the SROs for a majority of the time, and I know many counties as a sheriff's undersheriff before we did this.
Right, and I just use that as an example. It would be whoever they're using to help with that. It could be county, city, whoever.
And I don't know, Representative Hoffman, if you went into detail and I missed it about the history of how some districts might want it, but they want the partnership on the off season where those officers would go. So Representative Hoffman, if you'll give a little bit of back history on it.
Right, and that's part of the reason why we felt like we should allow this, because, yeah, some cities or counties, they felt like maybe they couldn't afford them during parts of the year, and so in a lot of cases, the reason why we don't have SRO officers in school districts is not because of the school, it's because of just finding a partnership with the city or county. So this would help them to find that partnership and go forward.
All right, any other, Representative Hoy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is what the, is this the same as the request from last year? You mentioned technology, like is this gonna be available for access control, interior door locks? Can we get more information on what is all included?
Representative Hoffman, I'll let you answer that, and Gabrielle can send the Safe and Secures that we passed in 2018 to you.
Right, I'll just, it's the same other items that are already in that Safe and Secure. We're just adding this one, so if, I don't have all those, but if Gabriel can send those to us, or even if maybe, if you could just, if you have it real quick, if you could go through them real quick, if that's okay with the chair.
Yeah, sure. I just looked at it yesterday, and I know it's for windows, doors, security cameras, intercom systems, any technology that helps relate and communicate. Does it also include training? And is there anything I missed? Okay. And then now we would do the one-time FTE SRO. But remember, it's 50-50. It's a grant process, so they would have to pay for half of it in order to do it. Representative Byers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this going to be, will this apply retroactively to current positions if districts falling short? Is this just simply for new procedures and upgrades to security systems?
This, for the SRO, it's forward. I'm not sure on if they've got existing security systems, if they can upgrade those. They can't.
Well, you would be able to upgrade, but it's new expenditures. So unless I'm corrected, it's not for repaying you because you didn't get something last year and you made it an improvement. It's to encourage new improvements, keep those improvements updated, keep your training updated, And so I do not think it'd be retroactive. Nick, can you verify?
Yeah, the proviso last year, and I'm trying to remember the initial proviso from 2018, that it's for expenditures that are made and approved by the State Board of Education and made by a school district for the installation of security cameras and other systems, equipment, services necessary for security monitoring, securing doors, windows, and any entrances to such facilities. So it would be for those expenditures that school districts are making in this upcoming fiscal year.
And if there was any way that that could be misunderstood, we'd want to just put in the language so that it's forward, not looking backward.
Thank you.
Yes, good question. All right, if there are no other questions, would you like to close on your amendment?
I close on my amendment.
All right, all those in favor, committee, say aye. And opposed? And the motion passes. All right, committee, what other amendments or additions or questions or comments as we kind of work through the money? Representative Landwehr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that I'd like to offer an amendment that the dyslexia coordinator becomes a fee for service and all schools pay based on enrollment to maintain that position. And we have an approximate $100,000 fiscal note, I believe.
Okay, committee, do we have a second? I think we are on, let's see, if you want to look for the governor's enhancements, they're found on 878, 879. And you could go look at dyslexia. Yes, it's $100,000, 879. So Representative, so we understand the motion before someone makes a second. Are you including the governor's recommendation? You're just changing the payment method?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the motion is made, is seconded by Representative Hoffman. Open for discussion. Any questions from the committee? All right. All those would you like to close on your amendment, Representative?
Close.
All those in favor of the amendment of maintaining the dyslexia coordinator per the governor's recommendation, but adding a fee for service based on enrollment, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? It's unanimous, and so motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Representative Estes, sorry, I looked at you.
You looked at me and read my mind. Last year, we added money back in for communities and schools, and I think that was an incredibly important program and very important schools. So I'd like to make a motion that we strike the governor's recommendation on that and add $100,000 for communities and schools.
Representative, how would you like to pay for that?
Out of the existing budget.
So it could be any pot of money that Kansas Department of Education has, they could use that for?
Yes, I don't want to tie their hands.
Okay. Do we have a second? Representative Thomas is a second. All right, open for discussion. No discussion. Would you like to close on your amendment?
I'll close on my amendment.
All right, committee, all those in favor of approving the $100,000 for community and school using existing Kansas Department of Education budget, thus adopting the governor's recommendation, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? All right, the motion unanimously carries. All right, other suggestions, ideas relating to the budget? Representative Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I actually would like to make a motion that we remove the $1.5 million in SGF for the CTE enhancement transportation section.
And that's found on page 876. Do we have a second? Representative Penn is the second, and now open for discussion. Representative Ousley.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Can you make your motion again? Can you repeat it?
Yes, I would like to remove the governor's recommendation on the enhancement for CTE transportation. It's number 14, bottom of page 878 for $1.5 million.
And we have a second already, Representative Johnson. Yes, sorry. I was just saying we had a second. I believe we already had a second. Yes, Representative Penn. So I was just calling on you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you stand for a question?
I'll sit, thank you, but yes.
What is your reasoning behind cutting down this transportation money?
Well, we added 5 million for the safe and secure. We need an offset for one. We've already pretty much fulfilled the Gannon expectations, so, and there's no statutory requirement for this, so.
Okay, my personal comment, being very familiar with the transportation system for CTE, I know clearly in Wyandotte County, the benefits that it has coming from every one of our high schools down to the school in Kansas City, Kansas, and some of those kids probably wouldn't get there otherwise. But clearly for inner city schools that lack personal vehicles, taking that away is going to cut down one of the best programs we have in schools. I've personally I'm very proud of what KCK Community College is doing, but I also see it in other districts, and I certainly could not support this amendment.
Representative Johnson, I would say on this, we're not taking away. Districts have been doing this. We did not fund it last year. I do not believe it was in the governor's recommendation last year or was an allotment. Do you remember, Gabrielle? It was allotted out. So they did not receive it last year. And most schools maintained it. And you have to remember that we corrected the numbers because the caseloads went down. So with the Gannon increases, schools are getting almost $200 more per student without the waiting. That's just the base state aid. So that equates to about $180 million more in a year. So if it's something that they want to fund, they're able to fund that and use existing resources to do that. Not that I'm trying to change your mind, I'm just trying to explain the thought process in general of letting schools pay for those things that are benefiting kids, because we want them to do those great things. The other thing, it doesn't prevent the community college from using some of their dollars, since they are also their student, their customer. So there are other ways to look at it. And just because the legislature doesn't fund it, we are fully funding the schools, and they are, that makes a huge benefit. But that was just kind of one other explanation. Representative Thomas, did you want to add?
I was going to say exactly that, so.
Okay. Representative Hubert.
On a different front, we had a hearing on 2631 today, which is looking at a new way of funding CTE based on certification completion. And besides this transportation funding, there's the 0.5 that's already out there, that some of that is out there, but it hasn't been appropriated. And so this bill is looking at doing some things differently with CTE, and I'm looking at doing a pilot program with that, and then doing a proviso that I would love to work with you with to put some funding in for this proviso so we can gather data on these certifications that we want our kids to get, and then looking at the money that's out there, and including this going away, it would, I think, be a way for us to fund some CTE issues in a way that gets to the end goal of what we want, is kids getting these certifications. So I just wanted to make the committee aware of that hearing. We're working on some balloon language and like I said, a pilot proposal that hopefully tomorrow we'll make more ground on. And then once we get that finalized, I would work with my revisor, Jason Long, to work with you guys to see if that's something I could convince you guys to consider funding.
So the idea is that, the legislature is providing funding for a CTE program. You have a bill that's doing some expansion to that.
A little bit, doing some things differently, and then looking at things that are out there that aren't being funded, and looking at a different way that we could view funding CTE issues in a way that would accomplish our goals better.
I would love to see a partnership with the community college to fund that transportation, because that road goes both ways. Yeah. And so that would be an exciting partnership for the community colleges to take some of that cost. And this, by removing this, you're not eliminating any of those possibilities, but does encourage the discussion for whatever that may be worth.
And I just thought it'd be good for committee to be aware of those efforts that are ongoing right now. And it's a bill that came in late that I'm working on and trying to do a pilot in order to keep the costs down, but still gather data, see if we can put together something that could be looked at being expanded on next year through more than just a pilot.
Okay, well, we look forward to hearing more about it. Any other discussion on this item? Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to disappoint my colleague to the right, I don't think I can support this. Reading our memo from last week, I guess, says this was funded from 13 to 20 and was eliminated in 21 due to projected revenue shortfalls. We don't have those revenue shortfalls today, so I will not be supporting this amendment.
All right, any other discussion? All right, committee, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Looks like motion carries, and we will delete the funding from our Bill 2512. Other items? Yes, Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to turn your attention to page 879, item number 16, enhancement for Children's Cabinet. I'd like to make a motion to delete $1 million from the CIF. That's the Children's Initiative Funds, those grants for the communities that are aligned with early development and education for the Children's Cabinet in fiscal year 2023.
Is there a second? Representative Hoffman.
I'm sorry, that's page number 879.
All right, we have a motion and a second. So question for Gabrielle on this item, grants for communities aligned in early development and education. It's probably in here. Is that a new program?
It is not.
I think it's on page 884. I think I'm just trying to look for it real quick. It is a new program. Okay, it's not a new program. Okay. But it's an enhancement to the program.
Yes, it is requesting funding to an existing program.
So the program receives how much right now? Okay, hold tight. Let's see how much the program currently funds. This is a deletion of 1.1 addition to an existing program.
Yes, it was just 1 million even.
And while we're waiting, if she hasn't already been sung to 50 times, we don't have to sing to her, but happy birthday, Representative Landwehr. She had a beautiful serenade from Representative Ballard in Appropriations, and she has a lovely voice, and we had a lot of fun. Yes, she does. Yes. Now, we do have Representative Thomas, who is a singer, and if he would like to, while Gabrielle is looking, you're welcome.
I'm happy to. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Representative Landwehr. Happy birthday to you.
All right, I love it. Now we have someone in our committee that can do that. Yes, go ahead, Gabrielle.
I was incorrect. They are not asking for new money. It's moving from one fund to another. So that is not a new $1 million. They're requesting that it be transferred from a different fund.
So tell us about the fund that it's being transferred from. So is it creating a new program? If it's transferred from one program, what is it doing? What is the $1 million doing? Besides, I know it's grants, but why are they transferring it even? Is it just Sure, John, come on up.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, that is part of the Children's Cabinet recommendations for the CIF for fiscal year 23. And what they are recommending with that is the CADE program was passed into law in 2019, I believe, and it's been with the same one provider in Wyandotte County for 3 years. Instead of having it as a separate line item in a separate program, the Children's Cabinet is just wanting to move that funding into the early childhood block grant line item appropriation because it does the same kind of work that they're sending out through the early childhood block grant. And so they're just trying to consolidate it into one line item. That's all they're doing. They're not adding more funding for it. They're just moving it from one line item appropriation into their main early childhood block grant.
Tell us what it does, though.
I mean, I don't know exactly, but it was a program to do early childhood development in Wyandotte County. That's where it was. I'd have to go check with the Children's Cabinet to see exactly what type of work it's doing, but it's overlapping with a lot of the same type of work that is done with the early childhood block grant. And so they're just consolidating into one line item.
The program-specific description, it did begin in fiscal year 2019 in Wyandotte County. Its specific goal was to improve school readiness and the health of at-risk children.
Committee, I wanted to let you know that I have asked, and Gabrielle is working on it, trying to get an idea of early childhood, 0 to 5, where there are many different pots of money from KSDE to KDHE to DCF to the Children's Cabinet. How much are we spending and where is that being directed? Are we duplicating services? Representative Penn and I were just talking today about preschools in my area. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure what all this money has done. We weren't able to get that answer exactly here, but I do know what the impact has been. And there are plenty of, private industry, early childhood development entities that have been driven out of business with this overflood of over $1 million, since that's what they're shifting, of monies into this space. And that's a job that they do very well. And that's something that if we can unfurl exactly what the state is doing, I'd rather see this done by private industry without having this flood of cash coming in from the state.
And I think the question is, we don't know for sure about this particular $1 million, or we don't know for sure about how much the state spends collectively. Representative Landwehr might be the closest in figuring that out, or somebody that serves on social service. But if, Gabrielle, if you could kind of give us a better idea. Representative Penn, would you be willing to make a substitute motion on your amendment, if approved by the second, that we gather more information and bring this back Monday?
Madam Chair, I would be amenable to that. I don't want to move in haste, but it is my heart that we find out exactly what's going on here. So I do submit that substitute motion that we table this until Monday.
Okay, and the second agrees. So the motion would be just we'll withdraw it then? Yeah, and we can bring it back Monday, because the thinking is, that we want to add policy to some of our money to this budget bill, but we want to give everybody an opportunity to review the things that we have done in K-12. And so the probability is them looking at Monday is that day to take together and decide what would pair well and what doesn't pair well. Okay. All right, so open now. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to talk about math. The other day, we had a really good presentation from Math Nation, and I think it'd be a good idea to start down that road. And so I would make a motion to add $4 million for Math Nation, or up to $4 million for Math Nation, to add Math Nation to the budget, with the requirements that Math Nation be paid by fees assessed to school districts with total math proficiencies in which 60% or more of their students are in the bottom half of state assessments. That's Tier 1 and Tier 2. Those fees would be based on enrollment determined by KSDE.
Okay, we have a motion. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions for you. Is there a second? Representative Hubert. And questions? Representative Estes.
I want to make sure that the presentation had that as a resource for families and parents at home, and that this is not being intended to replace a classroom teacher.
Yeah, most definitely. It is a resource for the teacher to use to help teach math, and it's also a resource for the parents to use at home to teach math. And it'll be done in all the different languages, which is, I think, very important.
Thank you.
Now, if this is in budget bill, or if this is in a policy bill, House Bill 2512, I think you mentioned that about even making sure that it works and a sunset, we would.
Yes, I wanted to take a look at it again in 2 years. That would give it time to build the program, instill the program, and start supplementing our teachers. Then we can take a look at it in 2 years and decide whether or not we want to continue.
And adding on to this, I think this is Representative Estes' idea. You want to comment about how Math Nation could report back? Because I do know that they will provide the professional development. And to remind the committee, this is not a curriculum. So we're not stepping on any state boards area of expertise. It is a way to support and improve math. So Representative Estes?
Well, when we had the presentation, I liked some of the things that we saw, but I'm a person who likes to look at raw numbers and verify things, and it was difficult to me because of where NAEP tests, and that's the most uniform yardstick that we have, and you guys heard me ask them some questions about NAEP scores. So I thought, well, how do we really compare and make sure that we're getting our money's worth? So what seemed appropriate to me is ask them to keep track on a district by district and a building by building basis on how much a school district and a school building is using the program, so that we have our own, we're all taking the same test, we have the same standards. If we see that a high-use district is not performing in improving the way that a low appropriately, then we'll know that it's not working. So I want us to be cautious and measure in what we're doing, and I even played around with the thought of adding some kind of an incentives in a positive, because I think districts need to hear that we're in this with them and we want to see them do better. I even thought about adding financial rewards for districts who improve a certain percentage, but I didn't flush that out completely as an amendment. But so I'm curious on the committee's thought about that, but I would really like to make sure that Math Nation tracks our usage in a way that will clearly point to us we're getting our money's worth or we're not.
Representative Tarwater.
Yeah, they certainly can do that, and they do that. And I believe they did a recent study with a district that was high use versus a district that was low use, and they both started out about the same. For the district that was high use had about an 18% better return on the tests than the district with lower use. So they are tracking it, and they are seeing positive returns from it. So that's certainly something that they do. It's a service.
And also to add that because that would be something that would be available to all students, if the Parents' Bill of Rights would pass into law, that would be something that the school district could add on at the beginning of the school year, just a link so parents would have access to that. So question Representative Tarwater about, they provide the professional development. They shared with us that. They provide a lot of data collection. They can give that back to the state. Do you think we need anything, or maybe Nick can help us, do we need anything in provision of law that requires them to provide back this information to us.
I think they committed to hiring 3 or 4 Kansans to run the program here in Kansas. They're committed to train all of the teachers, create the program. And yeah, I'm sure there would be a contract of sorts that we would work out with we can't just add them to the budget and send $4 million over. There'll be a contract and a procurement type process that we would have to go through to make sure that they deliver on what they say. But we've had emails back and forth, and they promise quite a bit of things, so.
So the intent would be that they would report back to us. I mean, obviously, we want to continue to fund something that didn't work. So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it would be similar to the JAG-K program, where they come and present every year and give an update on where they are and how successful they are or are not. And since we're going to require all the schools that are 60%, have 60% or more of their students in the category Tier 1 or 2, I think we'll be able to, it's my hope that we'll see a positive return quickly.
Because for the schools where they say there was an 8% improvement, that's a swing. We haven't seen an 8% positive improvement in a while.
It was 18.
18. All right, committee, any other questions? Representative Byers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have we looked at any other possible things that would do basically the same thing as Math Nation would, like, for instance, the Khan Academy Districts program, something where we could do a comparison contrast and look at what gives us the best bang for our buck? And I realize that Khan may not necessarily be geographically centered to Kansas, but is there a way we can look to be as efficient as possible with this?
Well, I think that's a great question. And the one thing, Khan Academy hasn't come to the legislature and presented anything, so that, and to your point, they're not standards-based, but I know they're a great program. But the one thing that made this unique is that they could look at all the standards of Kansas, and then it wouldn't interrupt any curriculum activities that are done or textbook series that are purchased individually. So it made it really, really special. I do know, I think it'd be interesting to look at a school district baseline for that particular program, what their math scores were prior to implementing it, how often did they implement it, and look at it from there. You could honestly do that for that community right now. And if you're interested, there are short audits that we can do. If there's something specific that anybody is interested in doing that wants to look at achievement, I'm just suggesting that as one, that we could find out what's working and what's not, because I think all of our schools are trying many different methods and a combination of methods to improve student outcomes. But what is working? And this is something specific for a couple of years. There are other programs like Parents as Teachers that last for 20 plus years, and there are other programs that are all over the place, whether they're in education or in KDHE, that we do fund, so that's not unique. But in this instance, I like that it has a sunset. So it's a long answer, but if you want to talk to me later about maybe looking into some specifics that we could get some data from, if you're interested. Representative Estes.
Well, since you threw out the short audit concept, I would really like to have every district and every building that this goes in tracked for their usage.
So you wanted to add that?
If that needs to be an amendment, I'm so moved.
Okay, state the amendment again. And actually, it would, hold on, let's pass this and we'll come back. Because otherwise that would be an addition or a substitute, and that'll get confusing, so let's not layer. All right.
I do want to say that, sorry, Madam Chair.
Would you like to close if there are no? Okay, you may close on your amendment. Would you like to speak first and then come back and close?
That's fine, I'll wait.
All right, Representative Hoy.
I just wanted one more clarification. Because if I recall, they were saying the $4 million would be for building the infrastructure to do this. So then once that's there, that would be up to the school districts whether or not they want to use it?
Representative Tarwater, would you like to answer, or I can follow if there's any gaps?
It would be an option for any school district to use it, but it would be mandatory to implement it in schools that have a 60% of their students in category 1 or 2.
And I would add that this is only covering, even though this has a sunset for 2 years, this is only covering the first year to get it started, because I think that they gave testimony that it could cost between 1 or 2 million on successive years. So if that's the case, and then we would need to come back the next year and budget another 1 to 2, depending on what that contract looked like with Kansas Department of Education, and then that would be assessed fee for service, just like this was assessed fee for service.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And then I think I will not be supporting, as a previous representative said, there are many other apps that do this, and I just don't feel like I have the information at this time to put this type of dollars forward to develop another app. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Tarwater, can you remind me again the funding mechanism?
The funding mechanism would be determined by KSDE on a fee per student that uses it.
So it would come out of schools' operating budgets, out of districts' operating budgets then?
It would.
So this is an unfunded mandate?
It is. It is a mandate that we have funded.
Yeah, I would add that we are funding and we are increasing, and it does not violate anything with Gannon. In fact, it supports Gannon. Here's why. The Supreme Court said we lost 25% of our kids. We were failing 25% of our kids. Now that number is much higher. That percentage is going up. And it wasn't just COVID that it happened. Assessment scores is the vehicle in which they measured our lack of funding. That was the number one thing that they used. And frankly, when we look at what's happening in the workforce and what we're hearing about kids not being prepared for the workforce or for college or taking remedial classes or whatever it is that you're looking at, we have good data that says you can improve by 18% potentially. That's incredible. If the schools could give us that kind of hope on what they're currently doing, that'd be fantastic. But right now we're going in the back direction, so I think it is important for the legislature to help enhance and to help the schools improve their overall. Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not questioning the intent. I just look at it as we're putting a new fee on there without adding new money. And then we're going to mandate that certain schools use it. So I would just argue that it's an unfunded mandate coming from the legislature.
I love it, and I just argue it's not unfunded because we fund quite a bit, but I love that we have that debate back and forth. Again, we're looking for outcomes. We're not getting the outcomes that we need. When we see schools that have 0% of their students that are in level 3 or 4 or in proficient, that scares the heck out of me. And 3% or 4%. And we need to get to these kids early. This program goes through 7 through 12, I believe. Is that correct, Representative Tarwater? I think it's 7 through 12.
I think you're right, yes.
7 through 12. So I would love it to be such a success that we start it sooner. But we can't just wait. Kids' lives and futures they're kind of slipping with some of that basic knowledge, and I think we can help. Anyone else before I turn it back over to Representative Tarwater? Representative Byers?
Madam Chair, my last question and concern is that as we go through this, that we're not going to violate any type of open bid procedure that the state may have already established since we're spending money in this direction.
I kind of alluded to this, but we can let Nick and Gabrielle speak to it. We have done this so many times. I was just trying to think in my mind that we've done it for JAG with TANF money every year when we do that. And that is just for the JAG program. We have done it for community and schools. We have done it for an old program that we no longer do called Reading Roadmap. Lexis, is there a Lexis one? Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Parents as Teachers is a huge one that I doubt they had a bid process in order to go in and help make those services. And I bet Representative Landwehr could think of other programs where it's a specific entity that's fulfilling that and a bid process didn't occur. But I'd open it up for discussion on that because it's a good question. And it's a question that others have had. Any comments or, Nick, would you like to comment on that?
I'd have to pull up the statute to see what the procurement process is. My one question is that it might apply only to state agencies and their processes, whereas you are the legislature with appropriation power. So, but I'll look into that.
Thank you for sharing that distinction. All right, Representative Tarwater, you may close.
All right, before I close, I just want to say that the reports that I think you're looking for are there. They're in the software. They will be able to track usage. They track usage by building. They track usage by child, by home. They mentioned that one of their main difficulties would be in a rural area if they don't have internet. But they're working to try to find better ways to make that happen too. But I think that you'll be pleased with the reporting, but we can certainly mandate certain reports. With that, I want to restate the motion, add language for the Kansas Department of Education to establish a fee for service to be paid by the districts not to exceed $4 million to require school districts with 60% or more of student population in the bottom half of the state assessments in math, tier 1 or 2, to implement the Math Nation program. And I'll close.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Next item, other items. Representative Estes.
Is this a good time to put in my audit request, the short audit request, or does that not need a motion?
So on the audit request, are you talking about legislative post-audit?
Well, the short audit you referred to in your answer to someone else. I just want to make sure that we do get briefed and maybe as we go through this process.
So there's two ways we could do it. If you want the Kansas Department of Education to provide that audit and that they provide that information to them and then we review that back, you might want to think about language and bring it Monday. If you want legislative post-audit to do it for the 100-hour short audit, then I can talk to you about how to formulate that and then you submit it to legislative post-audit. So there's two options for you to consider. So I want you to think about it and then we can fulfill that request. Okay. All right, Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got a couple other ones that I wanted to do. If you look on page 874, and then that's in the 22 budget, and then I believe, 23, and then I would believe it would be in page 873. 824, it's item number 15, and then 878, it's item number 13. What that is the Capers layering payoff. And what I'd like to do is make a motion that we remove that from this bill because it's going to be handled in a different way.
Okay, so it would be removed from our budget, but not necessarily removed.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be handled in a different way,
Okay.
through the appropriations process.
Appropriations. Do we have a second? Representative Thomas, second. Discussion. All right, you may close on your motion.
I close.
All those in favor of removing items 15 and items 13 on the layering payments, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay, and then the other one is, if you remember when Craig spoke to us, he talked about the, keep wanting to say the chickadee checkoff, but it's the local school district contribution checkoff. It just doesn't go like the chickadee checkoff. We got something about, anyway. We need to, I guess it'd be a proviso. Yeah, so if they can put together a proviso that would allow them to distribute that money, even if there is not a USD number along with it.
And there is a list on page 878. Does your motion include all those items that were bulleted on 878?
Look here.
And then in addition,
Right, it's just in his, it was,
Need to include this. Okay, so we're good. We just lost it last year and we didn't want to do it.
yeah, we just want to make sure.
Okay, be safe, he said.
Okay. All right. Okay, yeah. I don't know.
I think we had a second. Was that Representative Thomas or is that the previous motion? Representative Penn. All right. Any discussion about these items that were requested from the Department of Education? You may close.
Okay. Can we rename it Chickadee? No. I close.
All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, I do have a question, Gabrielle. Did we include in our original motion report out, separate to this, that we were striking all language from 2588 and 2592 that related to education? And if not, is it appropriate for us to do it now? You already have that language, so we're good to go. Out. Okay, so we're clearly, all right. Did we all, and so, okay, and also that original 2580 includes the state foundation, the 2.6 billion. We're good to go on that as well. Okay. All right. Committee, any other changes to the governor's recommendation? So for a clarification, what we did is we removed the budget from the mega budget and we brought it back to our committee. And then we will be reviewing it with possible policy on Monday. So you're going to get a break for the rest of the week. And so if there is something else, you do have a second chance at that. So the funding now is with us. And is there anything else that I'm missing here, Representative Hoffman? And okay, the subcommittee report will go out to everyone tonight. Remember, in the past, you had to sign it. You don't have to sign it. If you don't comment, then it'll be assumed that it was reviewed. We are not passing out this House Bill substitute, House Bill 2512 today. What we were doing was we were working some of that. We are not passing that out, only including the recommendations for this committee as a start and finalizing House Bill 2512 on Monday. What we passed out was the motion that we wanted to pull the budget. So I just wanted to be really super clear. Representative Landwehr.
Okay, so where do we stand in the budget right now with the MHIT program?
It was
the governor's 3 million? Okay.
Yes, the 10 million total.
On Monday, I'm going to look at probably amending that.
Okay. You have time to do that. Anyone else? Representative I'm sorry. Representative Owsley was next, and then Representative Esley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to discuss special education services state aid. And I kind of like that 5-year plan that the state board put together for the 68 million. I'd like to put that in there.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor from Representative Owsley. How much was that?
$68,215,146.
Okay, please take a note of that. This is the agency's 5-year plan. Okay, to know on this, that once this money goes in, you cannot go less. The next year would be a maintenance of effort issue. Also to note on this that we are fulfilling Gannon. Gannon said that right now we needed to be adding $7.5 million each year. That was the established agreement between the Supreme Court and the state of Kansas. We are fulfilling that, just to let people know so they have full understanding. Also to know that the Kansas Supreme Court said that the percentage of excess costs did not necessarily mean whether or not you are adequately funding. Another thing I want the committee to note, because we've spent a couple of days on special education, the excess costs were computed at 65 additional million from last year. That means that every year we're adding 300 teachers. Every year we're providing a percent increase to income. Every year we've got inflation factored into that. So that number, that 65 million, is why we can never catch up. So I wanted you to understand that before we proceed. We've got a motion, and I apologize, I said all that. Who had the second? Representative Byers, discussion. Representative Landwehr.
I think the biggest reason I would be concerned with this motion is the maintenance of effort, because that just exacerbates itself in the out years. And as the chairwoman said, you cannot cut that. And that's something that, you're a member of Appropriations, and it's no different than dealing with the net neutrality that we look at with our Medicaid program, is we build in those amounts that we can't adjust at any time in the future. Then something else gets cut when the money's not there. And I don't know if I've said it here, but I was here when we had to come in and cut the current fiscal year of all budgets. It's bad enough to cut the next fiscal year, but the current fiscal year was really, really tough on everybody. So it's something we have to be careful about, because if you're looking at where we're headed with the inflation, we're ready to hit that crash here in the next few years. I would oppose it.
And interesting, we talk about inflation, and we have been at a historic low with inflation rates. And in the last year and a half, inflation is just, and now it's just taken a huge shot up. And with President Biden's announcement today that we're not going to receive any imports from Russia, then you're going to expect your fuel pot prices to soar even more from the $3.50. And so that hits both ways. So that helps you've got your expenditures and your revenues are going to be hit. Representative Landwehr.
Well, and many times, Madam Chair, when we think of fuels, we're thinking gas for our cars. We forget about all those homes out there that use propane for their electricity, some of them use it for electricity, but for their heating, and that has just gone off of the charts. It makes the gallon per gas look pretty cheap.
And that cost, energy costs do get transferred to the schools. They're going to have to figure out how to make ends meet with inflation. Their expenses are going to go up. That's so something to keep in mind. And also a reminder to the committee, the governor, we included in our budget the governor's recommendation, which was the $7.5 million. So Representative Owsley's is an enhancement to the governor's recommendation. Representative Tarwater.
I went through this yesterday, and I think that there's quite a bit of blue sky in these numbers as far as the percentage of excess. $1 billion includes all the teachers' salaries, and I'm wondering if we could get more information on that, because as we found with the at-risk kids, they would put a whole teacher's salary into the at-risk funding expenditure just because there was a at-risk kid in a class. And so I'm wanting to get a better grasp on that $1 billion of expenditures. And then there's that's appears to be, teacher salaries. And that's quite a bit of a $5 billion budget. And because the 4% increase that they're saying that they're going to get, these are guesses, 4% increase for all teachers at 40 million is added to that. And so that would make it look a lot like most of that $1 billion is teacher salaries. Also, we're adding every year FTEs of 300 on top of all of these. And there's no way we hired 300 teachers. Actually, those are FTEs, so if they're paras, they only count for 40%. So there could be as high as 600 or 700 people hired in this number each year, every single year. And where are they going? Are they falling off? We've got to be losing teachers. Talked to a person from Wichita District, and their numbers are way down. They can't hire people. So these are numbers that are just plugged in here as guesses. And I'd like to get, if we're going to try to establish some sort of goal to get to percentage of excess costs, I'd like to make sure we got to the right cost first. So I can't support this at this time until we get more information.
And Representative Tarwater, I think you mentioned also an audit. Audits are a popular conversation. And if you think we could narrow it to a short audit of 100 hours, we could do that again. The last time we did a special education was 2018. It was on just basically a schedule. We don't have a new schedule, do we, Nick, for education audits? We have, because each year we've done at risk, we've done unencumbered funds, we've done that. Bilingual, I don't know where we are on that, because we might be thinking about what do we want audits for coming up, and maybe we do need a bigger audit that addresses that, and maybe it didn't address it the way we wanted to get to the bottom of it. Or maybe 100 hours, you could ask a very specific question that it would help us try to track down how many employees they really do have. So that's an option. Thoughts while Nick is looking that up?
Put some thought into it.
Okay. Nick, what do we have on that?
So KSA 725173 is the kind of the schedule of performance audits that was initially implemented in 2017 and kind of tinkered with through the years. It looks like you have upcoming an audit of at-risk education expenditures coming up during calendar year 2023, and then reported out in January 15 of 2024. You also have an audit on the books for a report due on January 15 of 23, and then an audit of the reasonable estimate of the cost of providing educational opportunities for every public school student in Kansas to achieve the performance outcomes adopted by the State Board of Education, and that is due on or before January 15 of 2024. So there's some upcoming audits.
And could you tell us again the KSA number?
So take a look at 725173.
Okay, so that gives us an idea of where we've been. And remember, previously, we were just auditing school districts, a few, maybe 3 or 4 every year. Is that about right?
I'd have to look or check with Craig, but this schedule of, these are legislative post-audit committee audits, but this was setting a schedule, and that's where you got the special education expenses and funding audit and some of the other audits throughout the years that were school-specific.
Okay.
Schedule.
All right. Yeah. Any other discussion? Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to offer a proviso.
One moment, Representative Hoy. We're still on the motion. No worries.
Oh my gosh.
No worries. But if you, any other items or questions on the discussion for the motion that's on the floor? All right. So I will, Representative Owsley, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I'm not mistaken, the legislative post-audit from 2018 said that we were underfunding our special education excess costs at the tune of $350 million. We know that it's in statute that we fund it to 92%. We had a discussion in Appropriations this morning about how we should recognize our statutes and respect them. I understand everybody's caution about spending that much money, but we are not in a shortfall. We have plenty of surplus today. I think it'd be a good time to invest in this. I had research do a little bit of work for me, and I think there's 4 close proximity states that fund it to 100% of the cost per student. I'd like to see us move in that direction, but I think at least coming into compliance with the statutes is a good spot to start, and I think today is a good time to start. So I will close on my amendment. I will be a yes on this amendment, and I would like my vote recorded.
All right. Committee, you have heard the closer on the motion. All those in favor of the enhancement of 65 plus million, it's actually, they have it written down correctly. Say aye. Aye. And those opposed?
No.
Looks like noes have it. So Representative Byers, Representative Owsley, Representative Hoy and Representative Hasselwood would like to have it record. Representative Owsley.
If I may, Madam, while we're discussing it, to maintain the percentage where we're at for 2022, it would be an additional cost of $40,984,504. See if we can get some buy-in from the committee on this one, just to keep us at the same percentage level.
Do we have a second? We have a second from Representative Byers, and the amount is 40 million plus, and do they have the actual numbers so that they can? All right, open for discussion. For the enhancement of $40 million over the governor's recommendation. All right, Representative Owsley, would you like to close on your motion?
Can I just repeat the close from my last motion?
Absolutely. You may
And
say
request that my yes vote be recorded also.
that works. All those in favor of the second Owsley motion, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? No. Motion carries. Motion does not carry, I apologize. So raise your hand if you'd like to have your motion recorded. Okay, same four would like to have their motion recorded. Open for other amendments. Representative Hoyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to offer up, I just want to be clear, I can pass this out if people want a copy, but it says HB 2588, but it is intended for now House Sub HB 2512.
Yes, so House Bill 2588 and House Bill 2592, one of them is our larger budget bill, and one's a supplemental budget bill. And so we're just taking out the education contents that and placing them into the substitute for House Bill 2512. That is, and to note, committee, are the bills that we've been working on are back in our committee, if you haven't noticed.
Yes, I did. I just want to be clear, because if you want a copy of this, it doesn't reflect what I want it to go on anymore.
It's okay.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
It's $3 million for fiscal year 2023 for school district logos, and it would provide up to $200,000 for a school district that changes its mascots from Native American to culturally insensitive mascots.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Representative Hausfeld. And open for discussion. Representative Landwehr.
I guess, Representative, I'm trying to understand why we're going to pay a school district to do that, and it's a local board decision. They can do that anytime they want, correct?
Correct. It is a local decision. This would help to remove any financial concerns that might be prohibiting school districts from moving forward with this.
Have we got a district out there that's wanting to do it now and can't afford to? Is that what we're saying?
I think that there is currently, well, I know there is currently one school district that is in the process of changing over their mascot. There are 28 school districts that could be included in being able to access this. So the $3 million, it's capped at $3 million for the fiscal year. So not every school district would be able to access it now, but it is up to $200,000. And if people are holding back because it's cost prohibitive, this would help provide some funds, because it is costly with new uniforms, gym floors, infrastructure in the building. And I think it's time to do this, and this would help remove financial barriers.
Landwehr.
But that wouldn't necessarily be open to all districts, would it?
In the language, it says, would you like a copy? I do have copies for anyone who wants it. The agencies shall expend monies in such account to assist with expenses incurred by unified school districts that have changed or are in the process of making changes to Native American or any other culturally insensitive mascots. This is not a requirement. This would be voluntary, and this would provide funding up to $200,000.
Representative Landwehr.
Somewhere along the line, I think this kind of violates some of the issues that we've had when we've tried to do things specific for different districts, that it's always sort of been about all or none. You can't just handpick some districts to get certain things and others not to get those things, so. And I think if it's that big of a concern to a school district, I know we've got a school in Wichita right now that I know Representative Byers is very familiar with, that doesn't sit with a mascot at all right now because of that change.
Would this be similar to what happened in San Francisco when the school board removed 44 school names, like Senator Dianne Feinstein's name because of she hung a or allowed a Confederate flag, or so they changed the name of the school, or they changed the name of the George Washington School, or I think they maybe changed to President Lincoln because that was offensive. Would those also qualify? Because 44 school names were changed in San Francisco. So would those be qualified names that would receive this money?
As defined, it says the expenditures from such account shall not exceed $200,000 for any individual unified school district, and provided further that culturally insensitive means insensitive, offensive, demeaning, or derogatory depictions based on race or ethnicity.
Okay. So under San Francisco's, Senator Feinstein, President Abraham Lincoln, and George Washington were considered racist, and so they did. I just didn't know if that would also fall under yours, because it would be subjective, potentially subjective. And
I think it is potentially subjective if there's a, President Washington mascot. I don't believe, the list I have, I don't know, but this is specific to mascots.
okay, I guess my concern would be that list, that was done in San Francisco. It actually caused that was one of the big reasons that caused 3 of their school board members to be recalled in San Francisco, was that issue. There was others, but that was one of the big ones. Representative Haswood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The issue of changing Native American mascots, just to provide some clarification, and I believe the amendment is culturally insensitive. So it's kind of this movement in the community where our race and our culture is being mocked. It's being, and before a basketball game, they dress up in our cultural attire and mocking the culture. So if a community or a school district feels that it is culturally insensitive at this moment and moving forward, I believe the amendment's helping that, because I believe a lot of the concerns for school districts was, oh, we don't have enough money. It's going to be causing a lot of fundraising issues to replace the logos, the imagery around the high schools or school districts. So I think this amendment helps aid in that and helps incentivize and ease that burden. Thank you.
So since we're talking about school districts, we're not talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
I have my opinions, but I won't voice now. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Byers.
As Representative Landwehr mentioned, I did teach at Wichita North High School, and I started there in 1991. The first attempt to change the mascot was in 1992 during my career. I know there was attempts before that. One of the continual arguments that came up repeatedly over and over again is that it would cost too much money. And that's one of the things that you hear quite often in districts that have a racially insensitive mascot, that the band uniforms cost too much money, that the signage outside costs too much money, that the football uniforms, that the basketball uniforms, the volleyball uniforms. And so what this does is it does open up, kind of close that doorway, saying, okay, you're talking about cost, but now we're going to be able to help out. And although $200,000 is a lot, but when you consider the purchase of 150 band uniforms, it's going to be about $90,000 of that. We're talking about those costs that are moving forward so that those districts can have that option to seriously consider doing this. And when you consider, and I don't remember the exact number of high schools in Kansas that still retain Native American mascots as part of their imagery, it's something that we need to make sure that there is some seriousness moving forward, that Kansas deals with some of the things that we know that need to happen in order for us to be more acclimated to the people that we serve here in the state.
Representative Penn.
Wow, it's a lot. I don't want to form my words around this one right here. I guess, Madam Chair, I want to ask the question. When people originally put up these mascots, you mentioned the Chiefs, we talk about the, well, now it's the Washington football team. We talk about all these different mascots and school things that we have going on. It was initiated from and correct me if I'm wrong, and I really want to understand this. It was a spirit of pride. Wasn't it to show a value or an honoring? But I'm trying to understand the good representative saying that everything has to be changed without any consultation to the schools. Are we making this type of direction without any input from the schools? Do they get a say, or are we making this this amendment or this motion without any input from the schools? Because I would imagine that they wouldn't have a say about what their intent was as well when they initiated or why they kept said mascots. Is that allowable in today's Kansas?
Well, I'm going to let Representative Byers respond, but I would say that this is a local issue. So here at the state of Kansas, we don't want to weigh in on the merits of what a local school decides to do or not do. That would, that would be really infringing. For example, if we want to say they need to pay their teachers X dollars, we may all believe that, but that would really be overstepping, telling that local board what to do. We create frameworks. And so that would be the main thing. So Representative Byers.
And while I will let Representative Hoy explain whether or not a school district would be compelled to do so because of this, what I will tell you is that in 1883, the United States passed a law called the Indian Offenses Act that forbid Native American tribes from showing their regalia, from practicing their languages, from practicing their religions. In essence, it erased the culture publicly. The cultures that you see now have survived because oftentimes they were practiced in secret or behind the scenes. That law didn't even begin repealed until 1934 under Franklin Roosevelt's Native American or his American Indian New Deal, as it was called then. And it wasn't fully repealed until 1992. So we've seen a cultural compression of those ideas. And when that happens, you know, oftentimes for marginalized people, having something offensive is better than being completely invisible. And so you have a lot of acquiescence to those ideas because it is better than nothing. However, in the process of doing that, you know, if your great-grandpa went along with it because it was better than being nothing, and then your grandma went along with it because great-grandpa did, by the time you get to mom and dad, they might not even know the reason why all this took place. And so we're seeing a reawakening culturally as we learn more about our own heritages, as we learn more about our own histories, and we learn more about the sovereignty of Native nations within the United States. And so a lot of these mascots came out during that time period between 1883 and 1934, so that we see those things. And it is an awkward place to walk, but it's one that as we gain more knowledge of our past, we also gain a better understanding of how it impacts our current times.
Representative Thomas and then Representative Landwehr.
I honestly believe, Madam Chair, if this was an issue that the districts were interested in doing this, there's 15 separate guidelines the ESSER funds could have been used for, and I think this falls into one or two of those categories, and any one of these districts could have used the ESSER money to do that, and they chose not to. So.
Representative Landwehr.
Well, and kind of along those same lines, I think that, again, if it's a priority for the school district, the local board can make that decision, and not only the ESSER funds, but also the reserves.
All right. Any other comments before closure by Representative Hoy? Representative Housley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the high school within my district did recently just go through this, and it's my understanding that the $200,000 wouldn't cover, you know, the entire expense of the mascot change. I think it was $800,000 plus to do one high school in Shawnee Mission School District. And then just to say, I don't want to, it seems like we're beyond it, but the comment was made that we don't do things for individual districts. And as I look at the budget that we have, you know, communities and schools aren't in every school. I know JAG-K is not in every school. The mental health pilot program is not in every school. So I would put that out there that we're looking at some right now. So I'll support the amendment.
And if I said that, then that's a misstatement because you're correct. Representative Johnson.
Just a quick question. what is culturally insensitive?
Representative Hoy, you can take that question as the carrier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the language here, it says culturally insensitive. Culturally insensitive means insensitive, offensive, demeaning, or derogatory depictions based on race or ethnicity.
So who decides if it's culturally insensitive?
The local school board. This, again, this is completely voluntary. This is providing option for school districts that have Native American or any other culturally insensitive mascot, and it is not a requirement to change mascots.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I just would comment, I'm very strong supporter of the Bethany Swedes. Used to be called the Terrible Swedes. I would fight for that mascot any time of the day or night, but some people might consider that culturally insensitive. I kind of like telling Swedish jokes and making fun of the Swedes, but just a minute here, I'm going to tell you never mind. Thank you.
All right, any Representative Estes?
Representative Johnson kind of hit on some of the thoughts going through my head, because when North High did change their mascot, I had some members, some Native Americans expressed to me that they were very disappointed, that they didn't want that change. And I think I'd like to see a more developed thing on it, but I do want to say that I appreciate that this is an optional. I like that aspect of it, but how we define some of the words and who makes that decision is important to me.
All right. Any further comments before I turn it back over to Representative Hoyt to close? Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't see you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think, I understand the sentiments of further conversation. I do believe that that will happen in other settings, and it's appropriate to have something in the budget that would remove financial barriers to moving forward. This allows local school districts to determine for themselves if they would want to make this change, if they do have a Native American or culturally insensitive mascot. And with that, I would close and move the amendment.
All right, all those in favor of the Hoy amendment, say aye. And those opposed?
No.
Division has been called. You may raise your right hand if you're in favor. 4, and those opposed. All right, the motion has been divided, and would anyone like to be recorded? Okay, 4 records for the affirmative. All right, committee, we have worked through a good discussion on our budget. Did anybody have a budget item that we missed today? Okay, so everybody had an opportunity to, we missed a budget item, Representative Estes?
No, I had a question.
Yes.
Did 2615 end up in what we're doing? I don't think it did, but I just want to double check.
2615, no, but we are, for clarification, for any policy, we'll be coming back on Monday. So we haven't touched policy yet. So the good news is, committee, that we have successfully discussed any of the amendments that were brought forth by this committee today. So we're not passing out this House Bill 2512. We are just closing it for today. And I look forward to seeing everyone back on Monday. Make sure you check your emails in case there's a change, because it is still call of the chair. But for now, it is Monday. We are adjourned.